Hey guys, in my last video, one of the subscribers to my channel left a comment in the video that is not just a great question, but also is something that on many people's minds across Canada right now. So he said, "Great video, Ash. I'd love to see a video or get your thoughts on the thousands of vacancies in Calgary right now and your opinion on why rents continue to decline. With all the speculative buys from out-of-province buyers, will a glut of supply continue pushing downward pressure on prices in the near term?" And while this question focuses heavily on Calgary, which I am a Calgary Realtor, and if you need any help or you're looking for data specifically about the Calgary market, definitely reach out. But we will also look at the broader strokes, the overall picture of what's happening as a larger economy across Canada. And then we will delve into specifically the Calgary market because I have a lot more stats and data on that can help you and inform you going forward. So definitely stick around. This is the video you're going to want to watch till the end. If you're either looking to rent in Calgary or you are a landlord with existing properties and trying to decide what to do going forward, or you're looking to invest in Calgary and trying to assess what's going to happen with the rental market and is it actually even worth it. This comment is not just a question on my mind. It's something that's been trending recently across Google, YouTube, everywhere. People are trying to find out what exactly is happening and what caused this sudden change in trend in the rental prices across Canada. With the huge amount of investments that we saw both in Calgary and top cities around Canada, a lot of landlords are now worried as huge supply changes and demand changes in the market are causing fluctuations in rental prices. So in this video, we're going to look to break down the current trends, the market data, and what we can expect going forward. We're going to start by taking a look at the national rent rankings, and this is for the top 35 cities across Canada, and they are in the exact order of affordability. So the most expensive on top and the cheapest at the bottom. And what we can observe in this trend is the largest pullbacks in rents are actually in the biggest cities across Canada. As we go lower down the chart, the pullbacks that we saw in rents actually reduce, but on the lower end, Calgary is actually the largest pullback for in the section of the affordable cities. And this is closely followed by London and Hamilton. And a quick observation I made is that when you compare Calgary with the surrounding affordable cities in that section of this list, Calgary does provide a significantly higher quality of life. And while this might just be my biased opinion, but I do think that for the rents that we still have, I think Calgary remains a top option in that section of the market. While that previous table covered 1 and 2 bedrooms across the national average across Canada, let's take a look at exact sub property types and also subdivided by 0, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. So as you can see across the board, we've mostly seen drops everywhere. The biggest drop, of course, being for 0-bed townhomes and houses, and the least drop being for a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, both of these don't actually come as a surprise, as the 2-bedroom apartment is probably the most flexible option for a lot of different types of renters to adjust and be able to pay the amount requirement, and it fits the criteria that most people are looking for, versus a 0-bedroom town and house is probably the worst option on the market for the amount of renters that would actually want that property type. On the contrary though, the gains that we've seen for a 0-bed apartment and a 3-bedroom apartment are pretty significant. So why would this be? Because a 0-bed is perfect for that single person when it comes to an apartment style home, and a 3-bed also very good for those looking to not be able to afford either a townhouse or a house. They can easily move into that 3-bed apartment option and still have all that space. And so that has seen, again, a lot of demand. And that's not really all. I think the real psychology behind it is the type of construction that is happening nowadays, especially in the larger cities such as Vancouver and Toronto. Most of the purpose-built rentals are really 1 or 2 bedrooms at most. So a 3-bedroom apartment is definitely still a hot commodity on the market and will always remain in high demand. Now, December actually marks the 5th consecutive month that we've seen rental prices drop, a 3.8% drop for a 3-month change. The declines in rent last year followed a growth of 8.6% in 2023 and 12.1% in 2022. So while we saw significant gains in the past, now we are backtracking on all those gains. Overall, rents have still increased by 16.8% over the past 5 years, which equates to about 3.15% per year. Taking another look at specific cities for their apartments and condo style rental changes year over year, Edmonton is definitely on the more affordable side compared to Calgary. They are still continuing to see increases in rental prices compared to Calgary. So while Calgary backtracks, Edmonton continues getting more expensive on the rental side. How does their opportunity cost compare to living in Calgary instead? The preference still heavily remains for a lot of people to move to Calgary for affordability and find opportunities here versus Edmonton. A lot of people that I've spoken to, Edmonton's usually their second choice and backup option if they are not able to afford or buy something within Calgary right now. BC and Ontario, even with their drops, are still very expensive in comparison. Now, definitely, they are larger markets with a lot more opportunities, but will they continue to hold their appeal for what it costs to stay there? Or will we see a continued shift towards more affordable markets like Calgary? And that will decide what will happen with the rental market in Calgary going forward. The two main trends that I observe from this chart is that the types of cities that see declines are primarily in two categories. One is the more expensive markets that saw significant gains in the past few years are now reversing those trends. And the others are cities where people are forced to move to for affordability, and given the option now can find cheaper options where they are right now, then those cheaper affordable markets start seeing declines together with markets that heavily dependent on high amounts of immigration or students coming for colleges. So areas such as London and Waterloo in Ontario are also part of that bucket where, because now we are seeing significantly lower students, in fact, last fall admission, colleges in Waterloo reported 45% decline for international students. And so that's obviously going to weigh on the local rental market in those areas. Now, the other category of rental types is purpose-built rentals. Purpose-built rentals are a little bit more resilient when it comes to rental price drops because they are managed by much larger corporations and the pricing is more standard. In fact, in Calgary, even though we are seeing rental price declines, I have noticed certain purpose-built rental buildings actually increasing their prices this year. While they might not have 100% occupancy rate, they would rather go for those slightly higher prices if they can meet a certain requirement in terms of occupancy. So the markets that saw the largest gains for purpose-built rentals are Montreal, Calgary, and Edmonton. Calgary leading the way at 14% for 2023. But in 2024, all markets pretty much saw a decline, the largest being in Calgary for minus 7.2%. But surprisingly, Edmonton still going up, but only by a moderate 2.7%. So now, after taking a look at all that national data of declines across the country in various different cities, what really is happening in the bigger cities of Canada, such as Toronto and Vancouver? So focusing specifically on Toronto, the problem right now is that we are having a huge number of purpose-built rentals flood the market at a time when immigration policies are completely being reversed and going in the opposite direction. So we're seeing a decline not just in students, permanent residents also, and also temporary workers. And a lot of the rental market in GTA, Toronto, is completely fueled by the high amount and influx in immigrants that we had over the last 5 years. A lot of those purpose-built rentals, condominiums, take 6 to 7 years all the way from approval to setting foundation and construction. And so all of those decisions were made at a time when interest rates were at all-time lows. The government policies were heavily pushing for these rental apartments to be constructed, and there was a huge demand because there was a huge shortage in supply for those type of purpose-built rentals. But now, by the time they have already been constructed, the policies have changed, the requirements have changed, and now all of a sudden we have an excess of supply. And from talking to my realtor friends in Ontario, what I understand is purpose-built rentals isn't the only problem that Toronto is facing. A lot of speculative buyers in Toronto market, and that's what makes majority of the buyers when it comes to apartment and condominium purchases. A lot of those pre-sales that happened 5, 6, 7 years ago is all speculative buyers who are looking to double that money by the time the construction is done, because that's how Toronto market has performed so far. And now that the 5, 6, 7 years have passed and interest rates are higher, everything, there's way more supply, they're not able to sell those apartments as they used to in the past. And so those apartments that were initially meant to be sold are now becoming rentals. So purpose-built rentals is one part of the problem, but then you also have this other influx and supply of apartments that are also becoming rentals. And so there's just a huge supply in Toronto right now compared to the amount of renters available for that market. This, coupled with what I highlighted in my past two videos on the economy situation across Canada, with recession, highest rates of unemployment that we have seen in a while, Toronto almost touching 8 to 9%, and the real problem being that the youth unemployment is now at 14 to 15%. And those usually are primarily the rental cohort that Toronto tries to address, because those 400, 500 square feet apartments are not really great for growing families or larger families. So it's primarily the youth who are just entering the employment market, the job market, and trying to find a job, or just getting out of college or doing an additional course of study. They are not able to find employment opportunities, and so they now need to move back in with their families. We are seeing a huge trend of either moving back with their families, or there was a 50% increase last year of people trying to find roommates. So now that is the new option, where people are no longer able to take entire apartments for themselves. Instead, they're trying to find roommates and split that rent. So while demand decreases or shifts, supply has dramatically increased in Toronto, resulting in the situation that we have over there. If you've enjoyed this content so far, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to this channel. We are always putting out more data and information to help you make better decisions going forward, whether you're a buyer, seller, or investor in the Calgary market. Every support that you show in liking this video or subscribing just helps me reach more people like you. If you have any specific questions, definitely drop them in the comments below or reach out. My links are in the description. You can book a call at any time. I would love to have those conversations with you and answer your questions. If I can even make a whole video about it, like you can see, I will do that, as I can provide more in-depth information and clarity into what you're looking to do and achieve going forward. What does this mean for Calgary though? Where does Calgary stand in all of this? Let's take a look at some specific data and stats that paints a clear picture of where we are going forward in terms of both the supply and demand side of things. So the population growth that we saw in 2023 and 2024, and this 2024 is based on a forecast because the year hadn't ended yet, is a 4.9% for 2024. And those are significantly high amounts of net migration compared to what we've seen before. But now when you look at the forecast, you can see a huge correction in trend going back to pre-pandemic levels. Overall, they still remain a bit elevated compared to pre-pandemic levels, but 2025, we will correct significantly. And then going forward after that, we will have regular net migration that we've been used to. If we just take a look at the total population and the expected areas of growth, not just net migration, but other factors, we can see that the total household formation will actually drop to 30% of what it used to be. And net migration shows a 25% of what it was for 2023 and 2024. I will also put a chart that I found for population by cohort and their forecast of growth going forward. Now, obviously, this is a lot more nuanced, and there's a lot of calculations that go behind the scenes, and it's not guaranteed that necessarily it will play out this way, but I just find it very interesting to look at. And so I'll just put it on screen. Feel free to pause, take a look at it, and see any trends that you observe. Something that I observed was a significant decline in growth of the population among the youth and I would say mid-age, and a significant growth in the older population. So grouping those different cohorts by specific age brackets, such as those are the youth, primary school age, working age, seniors, etc. It kind of further goes to prove those trends where we do see a small growth in the working age from 989, for example, to 183, which is about 100,000 increase. We can also see a pretty significant increase between the seniors and super seniors. So they go from about 183 to 240 to 230, somewhere around that range. And super seniors are from 20 to about 24. And overall, you can see the average age gradually is shifting up once we keep moving forward and bring lesser net migration into the city. Another huge hot topic for Calgary, and as far as the net migration goes, has also been international migration. We've seen a surge of international migration together with net migration directly into Alberta. People chose Alberta, especially Calgary, as their first place to land when they got permanent residency, especially in the past 1 year. But how does that shift going forward? As we can see here, Alberta's overall population growth is expected to decline from 4.4%, which was in July 2024, to 1.9% in July 2025. And specifically looking at Calgary, Calgary will see a lesser hit because Calgary still remains pretty prominent for those looking to move to Alberta. So we will go down from 5.6% to 3.1%, and that's the forecast for 2025. Now, all of that has focused on demand and what the expected demand is also going forward. But where does supply stand, and what is our supply situation compared to all the big cities around Canada, such as Toronto and Vancouver, and how have we done any different, if at all? So what we've actually seen happen in Calgary, we've had 22,000 housing units completed for the year in 2024. That was in November 2024. And out of this, 9,340 were purpose-built rentals. So this increased supply has actually eased pressure both on resale prices of homes and also rental rates. New home starts will actually reach record highs in 2024, with year-to-date starts of 22,000 already surpassing 2023's total of 19,000. So there was a huge influx of population growth, and builders tried to meet that demand. But by the time those constructions could be completed and actually showed up on the market, there was already a shift in the amount of international and interprovincial migration that was happening. So starts rose across all property types, with nearly half being apartment style rentals, with including 5,000 purpose-built rentals. And if you look at the chart on the right, we get an understanding of the percentage of construction. So 29% were detached properties, 9% was semi-detached properties, 14% was row townhouses, and 48% were apartments. Those are those multi-family style purpose-built rentals, or just regular apartment built, because there was a huge demand for townhouses and apartments in the past 2 years, and builders tried to meet the demand where it was. As far as things right now under construction, we still are at 20% for detached properties, 7% for semi-detached, row townhouses at 12%, and a much higher 61% for apartments, out of which 30% are rental properties. So there's still a huge amount of supply glut that's going to show up in the market. And this goes back to answer the initial question that the subscriber had. And yes, there is going to be a lot more supply coming onto the market as we head into 2025. So the real question lies is, how will it match up to the demand and the interprovincial migration forecasts? As far as where these constructions are happening across the board, you can see Northwest is seeing the largest in terms of the amount of construction happening. South is relatively on the lower side for 15% with Southeast, and inner city is only at 4%. Now, of course, the distribution between the property types is quite a bit different. Northwest is seeing a lot more detached, semi-detached homes, some places townhomes, but downtown we're primarily seeing a lot of larger lots being bought up to be converted into multifamily homes, especially with the rezoning laws that we now have in place. And those numbers still add up that it's still extremely profitable to add value to the Calgary market and bring those properties to market. It's just that the rental growth is not as significant as it was in the last 2 to 3 years. Despite not having rent control, the market always finds its balance. Having understood where those constructions are actually coming on the market as far as the different sub areas across Calgary, let's take a look at what the vacancy rates look like and how those are matching up right now, because that is the clear short-term stat that we have to predict what the demand cycle is in those for local markets. So we are seeing an increasing trend going into 2025, especially in downtown. Now, this will add further weight on downward pressure for prices. Newly completed units have the higher vacancies, and I suspect that it is usually the purpose-built rentals that have these higher vacancy rates because they are more resilient on the price and they don't drop as fast versus private rental units that are by investors usually compromise on the price much faster to get that vacancy rate to drop. An interesting article that I found by Anne-Marie, who's the chief economist, while doing my research for this video, really gives you some good insights into what we can expect going forward. And then after that, we will summarize everything that we've gone through in this video and what I expect and predict to go forward. So Anne-Marie says that we can, in 2025, expect a significant shift back to buying versus renting homes. Falling interest rates and more multifamily construction will pave the way for increased home ownership. Statistics from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corp for the first 10 months of 2024 show that attached and multifamily homes starts were triple of those single family. So of the 20,000 starts year to date in October 2024, only 5,800 were single family homes and 9,000 were actually apartments. Another push is towards more compact living spaces that will continue into 2025 and has nothing to do with land use or affordability, but rather lifestyle. And I'm actually seeing that change based on my direct interactions with my customers. There is a huge shift towards going for smaller spaces, but being in better locations and having the convenience of things around you. Sales manager for the builder partner developments says he's also seen a distinct push towards attached or multi-family product in the last 2 years. He believes many younger buyers aren't as interested in getting single-family homes as their parents were in the same age. I have seen kids in 20s willing to give up their space or yard for a vibrant, trendy, self-sustaining community that they are part of. And this is actually a huge part of the decision-making process when investors now approach me. We try to look forward, where is the market going, what type of buyers we can expect down the line, especially with a shift away from oil and gas towards tech and other sectors such as AI, what those buyers expect in terms of lifestyle versus your traditional buyers where Calgary was primarily always a single family city. So one of the really good options that I offer to a lot of buyers and has seen significant gains in the past few years because it caters to that lifestyle is a community called Seaton. And this article highlights that too. So Seaton is a hub like that. Everything is within arm's reach and you don't have to drive anywhere to get things done. Home ownership means something different to this demographic, and urban planning and changes accordingly. After all of this data, supply and demand both addressed, what can we expect going forward, and what are my personal thoughts on the predictions for what's going to happen in the Calgary market? As far as 2025 goes, and maybe even 2026, at least the first half, I do expect continued downward pressure on rental prices, primarily all through 2025. While prices will drop, I do expect a drop also in interest from out-of-town buyers, investors looking to create rental units within Calgary. There will be more of a shift towards value-add investors. So people looking to buy larger lots, create multifamily homes, especially in prominent areas. So this is not something that's going to see a demand across the board. We are going to see a continued shift towards specific areas such as downtown, Seaton, or even University District. University District has seen a lot of new developments. There's a condominium apartment building, purpose-built rental that literally just came up. And those areas will have demand going forward, especially for the low level of net migration that we can expect from other provinces and total international migration. One positive aspect that Calgary has going for it right now is the e-migration trends that we are seeing across Canada, where people are leaving Canada to go for other opportunities to other countries. Calgary does stand as one of the lower on that trend. There's a lot more people leaving from Vancouver and Toronto. Now, of course, they also have significantly larger populations to support the amount of houses and rentals that come on the market. Something else to consider is while these rental prices are dropping, even the purchase price right now in Calgary is dropping. While I expect spring to recover a little bit, I do think we will see continued correction in the second half of the year as we see lesser and lesser migration levels to the city. So there are still a lot of good positive cash flow opportunities for investors, especially if you're looking to add value to the property and not essentially turnkey properties. So if you're willing to take a property that needs some TLC and then you work on that and get a renter in there, there are still a lot of good opportunities on the market, but it's a shift into very specific communities that you need to look at. And I think we're going to move away from the general trend of literally buy a property anywhere in Calgary and you will see an appreciation and rents will go up. Now you need to be a lot more strategic going forward, plan for very specific communities, specific lifestyles, see where the population trends are going. If you are an investor looking to figure out what this strategy should be for you, whether it is buying more properties in very specific areas or offloading certain properties and adapting the strategy to based on your mid and long-term goals, definitely reach out. I would love to have that discussion with you and figure out what's the right move for you going forward into 2025 and 2026. I still believe, as far as the economy and political landscape goes, Alberta does have a lot of opportunities going forward, considering a few things play out as I think they will. If not, then I think Canada overall is in trouble. You can check out my video about that right here. But otherwise, you can find my number and links in the description. And I will put some articles that you can also review. And until the next video, take care.